Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for this special tribute for Lawrence Ferlinghetti on his 102nd birth anniversary. I am joined by a whole host of people from around the world who are going to read from Mr. Ferlinghetti's work. My name is Samantha Wood. I'm a member of Exploded View. I want to thank Christopher Sawyer-Lauçanno for being our special host tonight. And I especially want to thank City Lights Books for actually just being a beacon to all of us around the world. So I'm going to hand it off to my colleague, Edite Cunhã.
Hello and welcome to this Lawrence Ferlinghetti 102nd birthday tribute. We will be recording this event. My name is Edite Cunhã. This reading of Ferlinghetti's work is sponsored by Exploded View and hosted by Christopher Sawyer-Lauçanno. Exploded View is a word art performance group made up of myself, Trish Crapo, Nina Rossi, and Sam Wood. We are based here in Western Massachusetts, USA, where we create original site-specific art installations and performances. And along with that, we curate accompanying community art shows and participatory events. We feel a deep affinity with the work and life ethos of Lawrence Ferlinghetti. And so we decided, upon hearing of his passing, to honor his memory on what would have been his 102nd birthday with this reading of his work. The readers today span the time zones and come to us from several continents. This is in itself representative and indicative of the breadth and reach of Ferlinghetti's work. We're grateful for these readers, for those of you watching and listening, and we are really deeply grateful for Lawrence Ferlinghetti. I'll now pass to Trish Crapo, who will introduce our host for the evening.
Okay, hi. I am really happy to introduce Chris Sawyer-Lauçanno. I feel many of you probably already know him. He's a poet, a literary biographer, a translator, and a retired professor of literature and writing at MIT and at Naropa, where he rubbed elbows and shoulders and, just hung with the beats. He's a tireless advocate of poetry, a founding member of the Pioneer Valley Poetry Festival that brings experimental poets to Amherst every fall. And he also is editor of the poetry page of our local newspaper, the Montague Reporter. A limited edition of his recent chapbook, Just Words, Homage to Roman Jakobson, was published in Paris last year, or actually 2019. An excerpt of his memoir being published in Witty Partition, which is an international online journal formerly called The Wall. And he's at work right now on a collection of new poems tentatively titled Night Suite. So Chris, welcome, and I hand it over to you.
Well, okay, and now I can go home. Actually, I am home. Thank you all. Thank you, Samantha, for organizing this and for all your technical mastery in putting this together. Edite and Trish, thank you for your introduction. It's because of you, this is possible. And of course, I want to thank all of you who are reading tonight and everybody watching wherever they are. Lawrence was a dear friend, and I join you all in extending special thanks to him for his amazing 101 years on this planet. He made a difference for so many in so many ways, as a writer, as an activist, as a translator, as a publisher, as a bookstore owner. I don't feel any need to chronicle his life or his achievements. Everyone here tonight has some sort of special relationship to Lawrence. His poetry, his bookshop, his books, his continual crusade for social justice endeared him to so many in so many ways. He was truly one of a kind, and his example is one that we all should follow. So happy birthday, Lawrence. Enjoy the show. I'm going to read the last chunk of a book of his called, of course the dog has to bark, Dorito, called From Americus. Endless, the ever-winding watch spring heart of the world, shimmering in time, shining through space. No end to the birthing of babies where love or lust has lain. No end to the sweet birth of consciousness, to the bitter deaths of it in vain. No end to the withering of fur and fruit and flesh so passing fair, and the neon mermaids singing each to each somewhere. The fires of youth, the embers of age, the rage of the poet born again. No end to the muted dance of molecules. All is transmuted, all is muted, and all cries out again, again. Endless the wars of good and evil, the flips of fate, the trips of hate, nukes and faults all failing safe in chain reactions of the final flash, while the white bicycles of protest still circle round it. For there will be an end to the dog-faced gods in wingtip shoes, in Gucci slippers and Texas boots and tin hats and bunkers pressing buttons. For there are hopeful choices still to be chosen, the dark minds lighted in Stonewall bars, the green giants of chance, the fishhooks of hope and the sloughs of despond, the hills in the distance, the birds in the bush, the hidden streams of light and unheard melodies, the sessions of sweet silent thoughts, stately pleasure domes decreed, and the happy deaths of the heart every day, the cocks of clay, the feet in running shoes upon the quay. And there is no end to the doors of perception still to be opened, and the jet streams of light in the upper air of the spirit of man in the outer space inside us, shining transcendent into the crystal night of time, in the endless silence of the soul, in the loud, long tale of man in his endless sound and fury, signifying everything. The dancing continues. Thank you. Next at bat, Edite Cunhã.
All right, thanks. Hey, I'm just going to read a couple of minutes from this little wonderful book called What is Poetry by Lawrence Ferlinghetti. It was published by Creative Arts Book Company in the year 2000, and he kept revising this stuff. So there are other versions of it, but I'm going to read, I picked and chose lines that I liked. What is poetry? Poetry is news from the frontiers of consciousness. It is the sun streaming down in the meshes of morning. It is white nights and mouths of desire. It is made by dissolving halos in oceans of sound. It is the street talk of angels and devils. It is a sofa full of blind singers who have put aside their canes. A poem should arise to ecstasy, somewhere between speech and song. A poem must sing and fly away with you, or it's a dead duck with a prose soul. Poetry is the anarchy of the senses making sense. Like a bowl of roses, a poem should not have to be explained. Poetry is a voice of dissent against the waste of words and the mad plethora of print. It is what exists between the lines. It is made with the syllables of dreams. A poem should still be an insurgent knock on the door of the unknown. A poem is its own Coney Island of the mind, its own circus of the soul, its own far Rockaway of the heart. Let a new lyricism save the world from itself. And the next reader is Trish Crapo.
Thanks so much. So I had ordered this little book, Poetry as Insurgent Art, and I didn't expect it to get here today, and it got here just today. So I'm going to read a little bit of that. I am signaling you through the flames. The North Pole is not where it used to be. Manifest destiny is no longer manifest. Civilization self-destructs. Nemesis is knocking at the door. What are poets for in such an age? What is the use of poetry? The state of the world calls out for poetry to save it, a voice in the wilderness. If you would be a poet, create works capable of answering the challenge of apocalyptic times, even if this means sounding apocalyptic. You are Whitman, you are Poe, you are Mark Twain, you are Emily Dickinson and Edna St. Vincent Millay, you are Neruda and Mayakovsky and Pasolini, you are an American or a non-American. You can conquer the conquerors with words. If you would be a poet, write living newspapers. Be a reporter from outer space, filing dispatches to some supreme managing editor who believes in full disclosure and has a low tolerance for bullshit. If you would be a poet, experiment with all manner of poetics, erotic broken grammars, ecstatic religions, heathen outpourings, speaking in tongues, bombast public speech, automatic scribbling, surrealist sensing, streams of consciousness, found sounds, rants and raves, to create your own limbic, your own underlying voice, your voice. If you call yourself a poet, don't just sit there. Poetry is not a sedentary occupation, not a take your seat practice. Stand up and let them have it. Have wide angle vision, each look a world glance. Express the vast clarity of the outside world, the sun that sees us all, the moon that strews its shadows on us. Quiet garden ponds, willows where the hidden thrush sings, dusk falling along the river run, and the great spaces that open out upon the sea. High tide and the heron's call, and the people, yes, all around the earth speaking babbled tongues, give voice to them all. You must decide if bird cries are cries of ecstasy or cries of despair, by which you will know if you are a tragic or a lyric poet. If you would be a poet, discover a new way for mortals to inhabit the earth. If you would be a poet, invent a language anyone can understand. If you would be a poet, speak new truths that the world can't deny. If you would be a great poet, strive to transcribe the consciousness of the race. Through art, create order out of the chaos of living. Make it new news, right beyond time. Reinvent the idea of truth. Reinvent the idea of beauty. In first light, wax poetic. In the night, wax tragic. Listen to the lisp of leaves and the ripple of rain. Put your ear to the ground and hear the turning of the earth, the surge of the sea, and the laments of dying animals. Conceive of love beyond sex. Question everything and everyone, including Socrates, who questioned everything. Question God and his buddies on earth. Be subversive, constantly questioning reality and the status quo. Strive to change the world in such a way that there's no further need to be a dissident. Thank you. And the next reader is Wes Blixt.
He's muted. Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
We can hear you now.
Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry. I thought what better elegy than the poet's elegy for the poet? And so I thought I'd read Allen Ginsberg Dying from 1997. Are we back online now?
Oh yeah, you're on. Go for it.
Allen Ginsberg is dying. It's in all the papers. It's on the evening news. The great poet is dying, but his voice won't die. His voice is on the land in Lower Manhattan. In his own bed, he is dying. There's nothing to do about it. He's dying the death that everyone dies. He's dying the death of the poet. He has the telephone in his hand and he calls everyone from his bed in Lower Manhattan all around the world late at night. The telephone is ringing. This is Allen, the voice says. Allen Ginsberg calling. How many times have they heard it over the great long years? He doesn't have to say Ginsberg. All around the world, in the world of poets, there is only one Allen. I wanted to tell you, he says. He tells them what's happening, what's coming down on him. Death, the dark lover going down on him. His voice goes by satellite over the land, over the sea of Japan, where he once stood naked, trident in his hand, like a young Neptune, a young man with black beard standing on the stone beach. It is high tide, and the seabirds cry, and the waves break over him now, and the seabirds cry on the San Francisco waterfront. There is a high wind. There are whitecaps lashing the Embarcadero. Allen is on the telephone. His voice is on the waves. I am reading Greek poetry. The sea is in it. Horses weep in it. The horses of Achilles weep in it. Here by the sea in San Francisco where the waves weep. They make a sibilant sound. They make a sibylline sound. Allen, they whisper. Allen. Or Lawrence, we might say. Lawrence. I just wanted to add that I wrote Chris the night that Lawrence died and recalled that when I was a young guy at Mount Hermon School as a student, really unhappy, really suffering terribly, I came across Lawrence's Coney Island of the Mind, a signed copy that reminded me that Lawrence was probably extremely unhappy in that place, in that particular school himself. And so I took that copy and I went scurrying back to my room like a dog with a long lost bone, and I opened it and with a big grin, and I know that my mates couldn't understand what the grin was about, but it's a grin that I have even now as I read, waiting for the age of anxiety to drop dead and waiting for the war to be fought that will make the world safe for anarchy. And that's what I'll take to bed tonight. And I do want to thank all of you, and especially thank Sam and Chris for pulling this all together with a great deal of love and a great deal of insight and a great deal of ability. Thank you. And I want to turn it over to my good friend and my long lost friend, my dearest friend, in fact, David Detmold.
Well, you're far too kind. And I'm going to read a poem that is sort of cheerfully morbid and democratic, called Queen's Cemetery, Setting Sun. Airport bus from JFK, cruising through Queens, passing huge, endless cemetery by Long Island's old expressway, once a dirt path for wheelless Indians, myriad small tombstones tilted up, gesturing statues on parapets, stone arms or wings upraised, lost among illegible inscriptions, and the setting yellow sun painting all of them on one side only, with an ochre brush, rows and rows and rows and rows of small stone slabs tilted toward the sun forever, while on the far horizon, Mannahatta's great stone slabs, skyscraper tombs and parapets, casting their own long black shadows over all these long-haired graves, the final restless places of old country potato farmers, dustbin pawnbrokers, dead Dagos and Dublin bouncers, tin smiths and blacksmiths and roofers, house painters and house carpenters, cabinet makers and cigar makers, garment workers and streetcar motormen, railroad switchmen and signal salesmen, swabbers and sweepers and swampers, steam fitters and key punch operators, ward healers and labor organizers, railroad dicks and small-time mafiosi, shopkeepers and saloon keepers, and doormen, icemen and middlemen and conmen, housekeepers and housewives and dowagers, French housemaids and Swedish cooks, Brooklyn barmaids and Bronxville butlers, opera singers and gandy dancers, pitchers and catchers in the days of ragtime baseball, pool room hustlers and fight promoters, Catholic sisters of charity, parish priests and Irish cops, Viennese doctors of delirium, now all abandoned in eternity, parcels in a dead letter office, inscrutable addresses on them, beyond further deliverance, in an America wheeling past them and disappearing oblivious into East River's echoing tunnels down the great American drain. Lawrence Ferlinghetti. And I'm going to pass it along to Al Miller.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, David. I'm going to go off the screen and put up Canticle for Jack Kerouac and read from the first section. Far from the sea of Breton fishermen, the white clouds scudding over Lowell, the white birches, the bare white birches along the blear night roads, flashing by in darkness where once he rode in Pop's old Plymouth, and the birch white face of a Merrimack Madonna shadowed in streetlight by Merrimack's shroudy waters. A leaf blown upon sea wind out of Brittany over endless oceans. There's a garden in the memory of America. There's a night bird in its memory. There's an Andante Cantabile in a garden in the memory of America, in a secret garden in a private place, a song, a melody, a night song echoing in the memory of America, in the sound of a night bird, outside a low window, in the cry of kids in the tenement yards at night, in the deep sound of a woman murmuring, a woman singing broken melody in a shattered room, shuttered room in an old wood house in Lowell as the world cracks by, thundering like a lost lumber truck on a steep grade. In Kerouac, America, the woman sits silent now, rocking backward to Whistler's mother-in-law in Lowell, and all the tough old Canuck mothers and Jack's mamere, and they continue rocking and may still on stormy nights show through as a phantom after image on silent TV screens, a flickered after image that will not go away in Moody Street, in Ballou Street, in Dirt Street, Sarah Avenue, in Pawtucketville, and the Church of Saint Jean Baptiste. Thank you. And I don't have the list in front of me.
That's all right. Thank you. That was so beautiful. Next up is Imogene Pruitt-Spence.
You're on mute.
I'm sorry, I totally forgot I was muted. Okay, let me start over. It's short, so okay. Not like Dante, discovering a commedia upon the slopes of heaven, I would paint a different kind of paradiso, in which the people would be naked, as they always are in scenes like that, because it is supposed to be a painting of their souls. But there would be no anxious angels telling them how heaven is, the perfect picture of a monarchy. And there would be no fires burning in the hellish holes below, in which I might have stepped, nor any altars in the sky, except fountains of imagination. Oh, sorry. And the next reader is John High. I'll go back in.
I'm very honored to be able to participate in this reading. As a quite young fella, I met Lawrence, and as soon as I met him, I had just been back from Moscow, and he sat down with my translations and started deleting words, phrases, and whole lines. And I didn't know what to think about such a situation, but it was extraordinary. And shortly thereafter, I was piecing together a living as a journalist at Publishers Weekly and managed to get an interview with Lawrence. And I'll never forget, he said, "The book chains are fucking us. They're fucking us, boy. Do something about it." To the Oracle of Delphi. "Great Oracle, why are you staring at me? Do I baffle you? Do I make you despair? I, Americus, the American, wrought from the dark, and my mother long ago from the dark of ancient Europa. Why are you staring at me now in the dusk of our civilization? Why are you staring at me as if I were America itself, the new empire, vaster than any ancient days, with electronic highways carrying its corporate monoculture around the world in English, the Latin of our days? Great Oracle, sleeping through the centuries, awaken now at last and tell us how to save us from ourselves and how to survive our own rulers. Who would make a plutocracy of our democracy in the great divide between the rich and the poor, in whom Walt Whitman heard America singing, 'Oh, long silent Sybil, you of the winged dreams, Speak out from your temple of light at the Sirius constellations with Greek names, still staring down on us as the lighthouse moves its megaphone over the sea. Speak out and shine upon us the sea light of Greece, the diamond light of Greece, far-seeing Sibyl, forever hidden. Come out of your cave at last and speak to us in the poet's voice, the voice of the fourth person singular, the voice of the inscrutable future, the voice of the people mixed with the wild, soft laughter, and give us new dreams to dream. Give us new myths to live by. The next reader is Andrea Libin.
Hello from a rainy evening in Brooklyn. So I thought I should read A Far Rockaway of the Heart too. Driving a cardboard automobile without a license at the turn of the century, my father ran into my mother on a fun ride at Coney Island, having spied each other eating in a French boarding house nearby, and having decided right there and then that she was for him entirely. He followed her into the playland of that evening, where the headlong meeting of their ephemeral flesh on wheels hurtled them forever together. And I, now in the back seat of their eternity, reaching out to embrace them. It is my great pleasure to hand the baton to Bronwyn Mills.
Hi. I hope this isn't too long. I've had this book since I was in my 20s, and it's hard to get English language books where I'm living right now. This is I Am Waiting. It's supposed to be read to jazz, so imagine Thelonious Monk or somebody sort of in the background. I am waiting for my case to come up, and I am waiting for a rebirth of wonder. And I am waiting for someone to really discover America and wail. And I am waiting for the discovery of a new symbolic Western frontier. And I am waiting for the American eagle to really spread its wings and straighten up and fly right. And I am waiting for the age of anxiety to drop dead. And I am waiting for the war to be fought, which will make the world safe for anarchy. And I am waiting for the final withering away of all governments. And I am perpetually awaiting a rebirth of wonder. I am waiting for the second coming, and I am waiting for a religious revival to sweep through the state of Arizona. And I am waiting for the grapes of wrath to be stored, and I am waiting for them to prove that God is really American. And I am seriously waiting for Billy Graham and Elvis Presley to exchange roles seriously. And I am waiting to see God on television, piped into church altars, if only they can find the right channel to tune in on. And I am waiting for the Last Supper to be served again with a strange new appetizer. And I am perpetually awaiting a rebirth of wonder. I am waiting for my number to be called, and I'm waiting for the living end, and I am waiting for Dad to come home, his pockets full of irradiated silver dollars. And I am waiting for the atomic test to end, and I am waiting happily for things to get much worse before they improve. And I am waiting for the Salvation Army to take over, and I am waiting for the human crowd to wander off a cliff somewhere, clutching its atomic umbrella. And I am waiting for Ike to act, and I am waiting for the meek to be blessed and inherit the earth without taxes. And I am waiting for forests and animals to reclaim the earth as theirs. And I am waiting for a way to be devised to destroy all nationalisms without killing anybody. And I am waiting for linnets and planets to fall like rain. And I am waiting for lovers and weepers to lie down together again in a new rebirth of wonder. I am waiting for the great divide to be crossed. And I am anxiously waiting for the secret of eternal life to be discovered by an obscure general practitioner and save me forever from certain death. And I am waiting for life to begin, and I am waiting for the storms of life to be over, and I am waiting to set sail for happiness, and I am waiting for a reconstructed Mayflower to reach America with its picture story and TV rights sold in advance to the natives. And I am waiting for the lost music to sound again in the lost continent in a new rebirth of wonder. I am waiting for the day that maketh all things clear. And I am waiting for Old Man River to just stop rolling along past the country club. And I am waiting for the deepest South to just stop reconstructing itself in its own image. And I am waiting for a sweet desegregated chariot to swing low and carry me back to old Virginia. And I am waiting for God to look out from Lookout Mountain and see the ode to the Confederate dead as a real farce. And I'm awaiting retribution for what America did to Tom Sawyer. And I'm perpetually awaiting a rebirth of wonder. And I am waiting for Tom Swift to grow up. And I am waiting for the American boy to take off Beauty's clothes and get on top of her. And I'm waiting for Alice in Wonderland to retransmit to me her total dream of innocence. And I am waiting for child Roland to come into the final darkest tower. And I am waiting for Aphrodite to grow live arms at a final disarmament conference in a new rebirth of wonder. I am waiting to get some intimations of immortality by recollecting my early childhood. And I am waiting for the green mornings to come again, youth's dumb green fields come back again. And I am waiting for some strains of unpremeditated art to shake my typewriter, and I am waiting to write the great indelible poem. And I am waiting for the last long careless rapture, and I am perpetually waiting for the fleeing lovers on the Grecian urn to catch each other up at last and embrace. And I am awaiting perpetually and forever a renaissance of wonder. That's it. Let me see. The next person is Michelle Murphy.
So I'm trying to get my piece up. Let's see what I did here. Uh-oh. This is what happens. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Sound great.
Okay, great. So I grew up in San Francisco and lived there for many years before I came to Reno. So the light always meant a lot to me, and I imagine that the changing light is familiar to most people that love Ferlinghetti. The changing light at San Francisco is none of your East Coast light, none of your pearly light of Paris. The light of San Francisco is a sea light, an island light, and the light of fog blanketing the hills, drifting in at night through the Golden Gate to lie on the city at dawn, and then the halcyon late mornings after the fog burns off and the sun paints white houses with the sea light of Greece, with sharp, clean shadows, making the town look like it had just been painted. But the wind comes up at 4 o'clock, sweeping the hills. And then the veil of light of early evening. And then another scrim when the new night fog floats in. And in that veil of light, the city drifts, anchorless upon the ocean. Thank you. So I'd like to introduce Richard Garcia. Thank you.
I don't think Richard Garcia is here.
Okay, then if Richard is not here, then we should move on to Paul Richmond.
Okay. Everything's good. You can hear me? Yes, good.
Yes, we can.
Thanks, everybody. And let's hear to all of us keeping the spirit and the words alive that Laurence Ferlinghetti encouraged us with. This is called Don't Let That Horse. Don't let that horse eat that violin, cried Chagall's mother. But he kept right on painting and became famous and kept on painting. The horse with the violin in mouth. And when he finally finished it, he jumped upon that horse and rode away, waving the violin. And then with a low bow, gave it to the first naked nude he ran across, and there were no strings attached. Next up is Debbie Tosun Kilday.
I'm reading a piece called Seascape with Sun and Eagle. Freer than most birds, an eagle flies up over San Francisco. Freer than most places, soars high up, floats and glides high up in the still, open spaces. Flown from the mountains, floated down, far over ocean, where the sunset has begun, a mirror of itself. He sails high over, turning and turning, where seaplanes might turn, where warplanes might burn. He wheels about burning in the red sun, climbs and glides and doubles back upon himself, now over the ocean, now over land, high over pinwheels, suck in sand, where a roller coaster used to stand, soaring eagle, setting sun, all that is left of our wilderness. And next up is Laure-Anne Bosselaar.
Hello. When I grew up in Belgium, and when I heard that I was going to live in America, I started buying books by American poets, and I bought this book in 1980 and started trying to understand American poetry, and it was the best introduction one could have dreamed of. So thank you still, Laurence Ferlinghetti. And just because I took a plane and moved to America, I'll read a poem of his called Plain Life. TWA to Boston, and a woman in ambassador class having a heart attack, while the passengers wearing headphones are all laughing, hilarious at a movie with Dustin Hoffman in which he impersonates a woman, and they bring in the oxygen tank and pump her up And when she comes to, she starts crying and moaning over and over. Oh, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. And the passenger still are roaring. The woman weeping and moaning, I'm going to die. But then she doesn't. The movie continues. The passengers continue. The plane, like life itself, sails on, carrying its helpless passengers. And I would like to introduce all the way from France, Roger West.
Hi there. Can you hear me, Major Tom?
Yes.
Good. Right. Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to do two very short things, which are linked, because here in France, I want to celebrate Lawrence Ferlinghetti's European spirit, and this is a poem that he wrote. It's from one of the first things he had published. It was from Pictures of the Gone World. And it's not titled, it's called For. In Paris, in a loud, dark winter, when the sun was something in Provence, when I came upon the poetry of René Char, I saw Vaucluse again in a summer of sauterelles, its fountains full of petals and its river thrown down through all the burnt places of that almond world, and the fields full of silence, though the crickets sang with their legs. And in the poet's plangent dream I saw no Lorelei upon the Rhone, nor angels debarked at Marseille, but couples going nude into the sad water, in the profound lasciviousness of spring, in an algebra of lyricism, which I am still deciphering. And I just want to go on. I was very honoured, very interested to that my predecessor Laure-Anne is from Belgium. 2 years ago, I was in a poetry festival. I was a reader in a poetry festival, the Maelstrom Poetry Festival in Brussels. And it was in May, so it was just a couple of months after Lawrence Ferlinghetti's 100th birthday. And we were celebrating that because he was a frequent visitor to Brussels and a frequent visitor to the Maelstrom bookshop, which runs the festival, who actually published some of his work as well. And there was a publishing connection between Maelstrom and City Lights. And I was doing a reading in the square in the shadow of the European Parliament, that beacon of the European project and cultural exchange, which the country of my birth, the United Kingdom, though not Scotland, where I was born, then was divesting itself from. And it was all that cultural exchange seemed to be thrown away. And I read Lawrence Ferlinghetti's I Pity the Nation, but then I also translated it into French. And I would like to finish on my French translation of Lawrence Ferlinghetti's Pity this Nation. Ayez pitié de la nation dont les gens sont des moutons, et dont les bergers les égarent. Ayez pitié de la nation dont les chefs sont les menteurs, dont les sages sont devenus muets, et dont les réactionnaires passent par les ondes comme des fantômes. Ayez pitié de la nation qui ne lève sa voix que louer le conquérant, et qui acclame le tyran comme le héros, et voudrait régler le monde par la force et par la torture. Ayez pitié de la nation qui connaît aucune langue que sa propre langue et aucune culture que sa propre culture. Ayez pitié de la nation dont le souffle et l'argent est dans le sommeil et le sommeil des trop bien nourris. Ayez pitié de la nation, ayez pitié de ces gens qui laissent éroder le doigt et laissent emporter la liberté. My country, tears of thee, douce terre de liberté. Thank you. Thank you, Laurence. Thank you for the poetry. And merci beaucoup pour l'esprit européen. Merci. And thank you to Exploded View too. Thank you. It's such an honor to be here.
Merci. La traduction est parfaite. What a great note to end on, because Lawrence transcended every culture, every language. The translations of Lawrence are innumerable in just about every language. I've run across people from all parts of the world who know one American poet, and that's Lawrence Ferlinghetti. Thank you all. What a pleasure to be here in your company, to be here in the company of these readings. Lawrence may be physically gone from this planet, but he so loved and enriched this planet. And as is obvious from the work read tonight, he's far from gone. Far from gone from our hearts, from our minds. He's going to be around and resonating and inspiring and probably even making a few people mad for a very, very long time. Thank you, Lawrence, for all you gave us, for your poetry, your publishing, your translations, your bookshop, and your tireless crusade to make us all better human beings. You're missed. I miss you personally, but we all carry a little of you inside us. You'll never be forgotten. Salut, Lawrence. Thank you all. And thank you, Roger, for staying up in the middle of the night.
Can we all go for a beer or something?
Sure.
Oh, I wish we could. I really wish we could. I just wanted to come on it.
Zoom, damn it.
I want to thank all of the readers tonight. It was beyond my wildest expectations. This was just an absolute wonderful evening. Thank you all so much. I wish more than anything we could gather together in an establishment that served beverages now. And maybe
next year.
Someday in the future or next year. I think this should be an annual event of some kind. And I know there were a number of other tribute readings today, which is wonderful. And I can imagine us all joining together in that effort. Thank you, Chris, for those beautiful words. I've been thinking a lot about Lawrence Ferlinghetti's legacy. And I think it really is incumbent upon us to be bold and to make art. And as Roger said, to reach across and break down every barrier between us. And there is no time to waste.
Thank you, Sam, for everything.
Thank you all tonight. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Edith, thank you.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thank you all.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Thank you. And
Bon appetit.
à l'année prochaine.
Love to Kate. Roger, love
Yes.
to Kate.
Yeah, she's fast asleep now. So,
I know.
But you're in her dreams. I'm not.
Beautiful
I don't
reading.
believe
Beautiful reading.
Yes.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
That was fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you again, Samantha, for putting this
All
up.
better for tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you to all of you so much.
Thank you all. I mean, and isn't it amazing
Hard to leave.
that we can't duplicate a single poem? No
I was wondering that.
Abs-
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Although I have to say, I have